Major news today. The FBI has come out publicly to say COVID-19 most likely leaked from a Wuhan lab. FBI Director Christopher Wray also spoke about the Chinese government blocking any investigation into the origins of the pandemic. These are his strongest comments yet.
The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan. I will just make the observation that the Chinese government, seems to me, has been doing its best to try to thwart and obfuscate the work here, the work that we're doing, the work that our U.S. government and close foreign partners are doing, and that's unfortunate for everybody.
In his interview with Fox News, Wray made some even more fascinating comments than this. People often point out that this was not an intentional leak, and that's true. The actions of the Chinese Communist Party are completely consistent with a cover-up at the Wuhan lab after an accident. But this is a crucial point. While the leak was a mistake, it's not the case that virologists were just innocently working on deadly viruses. They were doing gain-of-function research to deliberately make coronaviruses more transmissible and more lethal to humans. Now, have a listen closely to what Chris Wray actually says here.
You know, the FBI has folks, agents, professionals, analysts, virologists, microbiologists, et cetera, who focus specifically on the dangers of biological threats, which include things like novel viruses like COVID, and the concerns that in the wrong hands, some bad guys, a hostile nation state, a terrorist, a criminal, the threats that those could pose. So here you're talking about a potential leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab that killed millions of Americans, and that's precisely what that capability was designed for. I should add that our work related to this continues, and there are not a whole lot of details I can share that aren't classified.
As the FBI director hinted in those comments, China, a hostile nation state, was deliberately developing a capability involving deadly and highly infectious viruses. His comments, as he said, are based on classified intelligence, but I uncovered some classified and public information that proved this. The Wuhan Institute of Virology has an extensive history conducting virus research with the Chinese military. There's so much evidence to support this, it is indisputable. It's in chapter 22 of my book, if you're interested. Many of the virologists working on bat coronaviruses were controlled, funded, or even employed by the Chinese military. And it's a point I raised with Donald Trump. Mr. President, I just want to ask you about this idea that the Wuhan Institute of Virology has strong ties to the Chinese military and was working on secret projects with the Chinese military. Do you think SARS-CoV-2 was developed as a bioweapon?
So, I'd like to think it wasn't. And I'll probably have to leave it at that because I want to give the benefit of a doubt. And China was also affected by it. So I really don't think it was, but nobody can really know for sure. And certainly now most of that evidence is gone, and it's going to be very hard to find out.
Chinese military-affiliated scientists have been discussing weaponizing coronaviruses, not just viruses, but coronaviruses, for 5 years before the pandemic. This was a dangerous program that was being run in Wuhan and funded by America. The scientists were playing with fire, and Anthony Fauci was naive and foolish to be funding this military program involving coronaviruses. So despite some news reports you might have read today, the evidence all indicates the leak was an accident.
I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was incompetence. Scientists walked out and had lunch outside in a park or something with the girlfriend, and he had it and she had it.
Was that patient zero, that scientist from the lab?
I don't know if it's patient zero or patient something else, but that's one theory. And they've also had some safety problems, as you know, at that lab.
Has the United States spoken to defectors who worked in the lab, who blew the whistle on what happened?
I really can't talk about that. Yeah, I cannot talk about that. I won't be really allowed to talk, nor would I want to.
In the past, we've now seen two agencies, the Department of Energy and the FBI, express the view COVID was a lab leak. Another two agencies, including the CIA, are undecided. And 4 other agencies say the virus naturally crossed from animals to humans. But none of the agencies have a high degree of confidence in their assessments. They all know it is possible the pandemic began as a mishap in a Wuhan lab. It's very difficult to control a highly infectious virus. The world's top intelligence agencies can't say for certain how the pandemic started 3 years in. But yet, don't forget, the ABC, Paul Barry, The Guardian, the Sydney Morning Herald, they all knew better than these intelligence agencies. They'd solved the mystery and knew just how it started only a few months into the pandemic.
So how likely is it that the virus escaped from that Chinese lab? Well, in short, it's not, despite concerns expressed by the Americans in 2018 about lax standards, and despite what President Trump has been saying.
And there really is very little evidence. It's on the outer bounds of possibility, but really so unlikely that you could say definitely that it's not the case.
As well as competing baseless claims about a virus that was created in a lab and unleashed for nefarious purposes. The pandemic has been an opportunity for misinformation and disinformation.
You said the overwhelming amount of evidence indicates that's a lab leak. I believe most card-carrying viral phylogenists and molecular virologists would disagree with you.